Kubo Parima!
The question of whether the playable Hornet expansion is a sequel or a prequel has been plaguing me for as long as I can remember. I lie awake every night, just begging Team Cherry to finally give us an answer. But I know they are just laughing at me. Well, not anymore. I think I finally figured it out. The answer to what Silksong is about has been right in front of us the entire time, and all it took to see it was a little help from an unlikely ally, the French. Ah yes, the French. I don't get to talk much about them on this channel, but today that finally changes. I love the French. I mean, if Team Cherry was French, you'd bet we'd be getting that snail village, so that's a big plus right there. Anyway, a Frenchman by the name of Buisson pointed out to me an interesting line of dialogue found in the French translation of Hollow Knight. Here's the dialogue in question. Alarm bell should be going off in your head right now. Now first, let's look at the line in English. Hornet says the following. An old kingdom, a terrible thing awakens. I can smell it in the air. I know what you are. I know what you try to do. I can't allow it. Now let's go back to the French translation. You see it, don't you? There's an extra line in here. J'ai beaucoup trop chappé à revenir. Now Buisson told me this translates to, this ancient kingdom, I took too much time to come back. Now a terrible thing awakens. And I ran it through Google Translate just to make sure I wasn't being hoodwinked, and it checks out. So I talked to some of the lovely people who run the Hollow Knight wiki, and according to them, this line of dialogue does not show up in the Spanish or German translations of the game, but it does show up in the developer's notes of version 1.0.0.6 of Hollow Knight. It says, the line "I've returned late" has currently been removed. Should it be in there? In other words, when Hornet first met the knight in Greenpath, she was originally going to mention that she had spent too much time away from Hallownest, or that she returned late. This line of dialogue was removed before the game was released, but somehow this line was not removed from the French translation. This is huge. If Hornet was outside of Hallownest all the way until right before the events of Hollow Knight, then this strongly implies that Silksong is in fact a prequel. Of course, this line of dialogue was from way back when Hollow Knight first came out, so it might not reflect Team Cherry's plan for Silksong at all. But honestly, this makes a lot of sense. None of Hornet's dialogue implies that she spent her whole life in Hallownest, so this theory doesn't contradict anything she says. If we look at the manual for Hollow Knight, we get a very interesting description for Hornet. It describes her as a mysterious wanderer, seeking answers in Hallownest's deepest depths. So how is Hornet a wanderer? It seems to imply that Hornet has been outside of Hallownest at some point, before the events of the game. In Hollow Knight, all we really know about Hornet's goal in Hallownest is that she guards the king's brand. We don't know why, or for how long. Does Hornet do this because of what she learned during the events of Silksong? And again, the fact that this dialogue was ever even in the game in the first place connects this all together. The dev note I mentioned earlier was also removed from the game in a later update, which to me is a red flag that Team Cherry did not want us to see it. You think you're so smart, don't you, Team Cherry? Well, your game is up. I have all the evidence I need to finally declare that Silksong is a prequel. That's right, I went full circle, baby. So when Team Cherry says that Silksong is a sequel to Hollow Knight, they just mean it's the second installment in the series. Kinda like Marley and Me 2. It's called Marley and Me 2, but for obvious reasons, it's actually a prequel. Actually, fuck Marley and Me 2. Silksong is Godfather Part 2. It's a sequel and a prequel. The game will start before the events of Hollow Knight, and then Hornet will travel back to Hallownest, and we will play through the events of Hollow Knight as Hornet, and then the game will end with the Godmaster endings. It makes so much sense, guys. Think Dark Souls 3 or Pokemon Gold and Silver. Why not just place Hallownest back into Silksong? I mean, it's free real estate. In fact, Team Cherry has said this in a Reddit AMA back in 2017. According to Ari, some of Hornet's story will take place in all new areas, though we yet specify how much of her adventure takes place in old or new zones. So what do you think, guys? Did we just crack this whole thing wide open? Or have I just been thinking about Silksong for so long that I'm starting to lose touch with the reality? More so. That, my friends, is for you to decide. Au revoir.